A biblical perspective on life, culture and current events. This is 2020 on Vision.
Let's get our focus back today on the issue of abortion, because things are changing. You might have noted the way that there are less clinical abortions these days, and a lot of the legislation you might hear about is around issues to do with chemical abortion or taking pills. But there are some more changes to note today. There is a changing face of what it looks like to be pro-life. And particularly politicians are choosing a less severe way of talking about life issues and claiming that as their space. Well, let's talk about that today, the changing face of what's happening with the abortion debate. Kathy Clubb is back with us. She's a pro-life advocate working with Endeavour Forum. In fact, she edits the e-news forum, so when you're having some connection and engagement with Endeavour Forum, it's likely that you're engaging with Kathy Clubb. Kathy, a special welcome back to 2020.
Oh, thanks, Neil. Thanks for having me. It's great to be back again.
Kathy, the changing way that people are talking about being pro-life, maybe it used to be black and white. You were either pro-choice or pro-death, or the pro-life side. But there's some grey areas developing. How do you describe that?
Well, Neil, the way I describe it is almost a new definition of pro-life is starting to creep in. And it was very clear in the last US presidential elections when under Trump, the Republican Party changed their platform to remove protections for life before the election. But he still won with great support from Christians, Catholics, pro-lifers, because he wasn't as bad as the opposition. And of course, we know late-term abortion is absolutely heinous and it's barbaric. But it's an easy sell to convince people that late-term abortion is wrong because we love babies. Babies are cute. Everybody loves babies. As soon as people realize what a late-term abortion is, most people will say that they would reject that. And so it was that Vance and Trump were both invited to speak at the big Washington, D.C. March for Life early this year in January, yet both of them are on record as being for abortion. So that was a really low point, and it was a very stark moment for me to see, well, it's almost like there's a new definition for what it is to be pro-life. It's not 100% pro-life, it's against late-term abortion, And I've been concerned to see some of that creeping in Australia as well.
Okay, a sinister way of softening what would ordinarily have been a genuine pro-life position to be not as bad as my opponents. That's a very politicised way of being able to watch your own back and say your opponents are bad, but I don't want to be pro-life, but I'm going to just be a little bit better than they are. You mentioned this is happening not only in the US, but you're seeing signs of this in Australia too. What should we be looking for?
Well, there's nothing wrong, of course, with someone being against late-term abortion, and certainly nothing wrong in principle, with bringing in bills that in some way limit or outlaw late-term abortion. But the problem is when the focus becomes solely on late-term abortion. And I've seen pro-life politicians, pro-life advocates in Australia call politicians pro-life simply because they're against late-term abortion. So that same rhetoric or that same definition of pro-life is here now in Australia as well, where a politician doesn't have to be against abortion 100%. They simply have to be against late-term abortion. The other thing with bringing in bills that limit in some way late-term abortion is the wording. The wording, the text of a bill like that has to be extremely well written so that in no way does it advocate for abortion in the earlier stages. And that's the job of the lawyers to make sure that doesn't happen. But it's something that it's technical, and it needs to be very well thought out so that there's no positive right to abortion in any of these late-term abortion bills.
Is it the case, Kathy, that if there's going to be change, ultimately, it won't just happen a full 180 degrees opposite effect, and that somehow or other incremental change is what's likely to happen as a pro-life movement continues to gain pace and has influence to the changing legislation? Is this idea of being against late-term abortion possibly even a part of what you might think of as some level of incremental change that you might actually celebrate?
Yes, it can be. It can be, and if there's a genuine strategy behind it, that will eventually lead to abortion laws across the board being wound back, then it is something to be celebrated for sure. The problem is if it's held up as the pinnacle of change that we want to see. But a pro-life lawyer who's a friend of mine said that if there is a strategy in place, or in fact she said there shouldn't be any late-term abortion wind back attempts until there is a strategy in place. Otherwise, we're going to just basically live with the idea of early abortions, and they account for around at least 90% of all abortions. Late-term abortions, while they're very dramatic, because we can imagine a full-term baby because we've all seen full-term and newborn babies.
So, Kathy, the thought that there might be a full strategy, somehow or other you've got to have a political momentum, haven't you, that creates a strategy like that actually then becomes acceptable across the board. That doesn't look like it's happening anytime soon.
No, it doesn't, and it's quite difficult, Neil. And it comes back to the question of the culture versus the law. And I think, as you said before, it would not be possible to impose an abortion ban in somewhere like Australia. There's no political will for it, and there's no call for it in the populace as well. So I think we could have perhaps a successful late-term abortion bill at some point soon, but then the real work is to be done in the culture, in our own spheres of influence, our families and our communities, our parishes, our churches, to start bringing people back to the idea that every abortion is an outrage, and that all babies need to be nurtured and brought to full term, and all mothers need to be helped as well.
I think I can hear you say that if you say you are a pro-life person, and that might well have a foundation with your Christian religious faith, that you need to be thoroughgoing in that and not let your own beliefs be watered down by some of the things that are creeping in politically, by people taking, a softened view. You need to keep strong, keep sound, and understand your own belief. Is that what I can hear you saying?
Oh, absolutely. We can support the late-term abortion bills, and we should give good legislation as much airtime as possible. But we do have to, in our own minds, but also publicly, keep bringing people back to this idea that all abortions are bad and all abortions kill babies. So, yes, you're right. It's a matter of our own heart being in the right place, but then also being able to speak that out to other people as well.
And right now, there's a gestational limit for the use of that two-step use of abortion pills, 63 days, as I understand that. There's a lot of different fronts that you need to be abreast of if you're going to understand how the whole debate is moving, and where you can act and where you need to protest. Those sorts of things become important, don't they, if you're looking to pose some sort of a threat to the ongoing overwhelming push for abortion.
Yes, it is. It can be difficult to know where to act, but for quite a while now, I've thought it's very important that we promote pregnancy support centres whether that's working in them, funding them, or raising funds for them, just promoting them in our communities, finding out who's near us, matching women with pregnancy centres and so on. Because at least in theory, pro-abortion people should want pregnancy support centres to be running well and to be available. It doesn't always play out in the real world, but certainly the principle should be there. If they say they're really pro-choice, then women should have the choice to have a baby and be supported through their pregnancy. So that's something that everyone can do. I think there's a lot, just thinking about social media, there are lots and lots of memes and positive stories about motherhood going out every day. I think all that's helping. I think it really does help. How much it actually changes the culture is difficult to gauge. But I think as far as really changing the culture, that comes from our interpersonal relationships. The people that we know that can speak to someone who's pro-life in real life and get to know that this is not a hater. This is a nice person who cares about me. Even if I don't agree with them, I can see that they really do love me and they really do want the best for me. So that's another task at least that we all have. Reaching out to people that we know that don't necessarily agree with us, but they need to know. In fact, all of our friends and family circle need to know, where would they go? Who would they go to if they find themselves with an unplanned pregnancy? And it should be to us, the people listening to this radio show today.
Those one-on-one personal interactions, and that gaining pace, I guess, with churches and organisations within communities that will hold children in very high regard. And as you say, our ability to match women with pregnancy support centres. And I note the growth of those that are going on around Australia too, but there's a need for a pregnancy support centre in every community, and that capacity is there. So there's a challenge there, and really, it's not nice to think, but maybe the war was lost when abortions went to full term, and fighting your way back from there is very difficult. But for those who are listening today, that one-on-one personal interaction and your ability to be a lifeboat to that person to that woman who is suffering an unintended pregnancy. Thank you so much once again, Kathy Clubb. Kathy's a pro-life advocate. She works with Endeavour Forum, and she edits the e-news for Endeavour Forum. There is a website, endeavourforum.org. That's endeavourforum.org. Kathy Clubb, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us once again today on 2020.
Thanks, Neil.
Thanks for taking time to listen to this audio on demand from Vision Christian Media. To find out more about us, go to vision.org.au.